quit my dream role, and I'm gonna tell you why. Deep into the pandemic, I switched tracks from an individual contributor into an engineering manager. And it's been a huge dream of mine. I got to coach one person, then two, then at some point four. My role was to lead a team, meaning doing both the technical strategy and people management, while still also writing code. I thought that I was well prepared for this role. I did multiple workshops, I read many books, I talked to other managers to understand what good leadership is. And for a while, I was really enjoying it. I got a chance to utilize my natural big picture thinking and cross-platform expertise alongside teaching and upskilling junior engineers. I thought I was doing alright for a first-time manager, but then things started happening. For this video to make sense, I need to give you a little bit of context on why I wanted to be a manager, what my expectations were, what I liked and didn't like about the actual day-to-day job, and why I finally decided to quit and get back to coding. I will also tell you what the financial implications of this decision were and whether or not I regret it after 2 months in my new old role of an IC. Hello coders, my name is Karo and I'm a senior software engineer at Canva, and on this channel I bring you my first-hand experience working in the tech industry. Let's start with the reasons. There were 3 main aspects of this role that I found really compelling. The first one might not be the most intuitive, but to understand it you need to know how risk-averse I am. So the thing is, I always wanted to build a startup. I had millions of ideas, I even prototyped many of them, but I was always scared of getting to the phase of making it real. It was mostly because I didn't believe I had the skills necessary to manage a team, which I would definitely need if the app goes live and grows, and I was getting way ahead of myself. So my idea was to practice in a low-risk environment as an entry-level engineering manager with a support from my manager, a career coach, and my peers. I assumed that when I'd be ready, my team would grow bigger, maybe my role would expand. One day I will be a manager of managers, maybe a VP of engineering, who knows? You might have guessed that I don't believe in this anymore, which doesn't mean it didn't work. It weirdly did, but the outcome was completely not what I expected. And I'll tell you more about it in just a little bit. The second reason is that I'm strongly opinionated about both the technical and product direction, so I wanted to have more control over what we are working on as a team. As a tech lead, you do choose the technical direction, but you don't have much say in terms of the product and features that you're going to implement. The last reason is actually the same one that prompted me to start my YouTube channel. I love spreading my passion for programming and helping people get the careers they want. For me, figuring out how to motivate and influence people while also making sure they're happy was like a puzzle, and I freaking love puzzles. There's one more aspect of me wanting to become an engineering manager, but it's not as much a reason as an effect of cultural conditioning. I know that most of my viewers are from the US, and I would love to know your perspective on this, but in a nutshell, the European and specifically Polish view on career is that management is the ultimate goal. Like, if you didn't get promoted to a manager, you failed.
Failure!
So in the back of my mind, I always knew this was my future. The question was only, how good was I? How quickly can I get there? As I mentioned in the intro, I started managing during the pandemic when we were all working from home. For the first few months, I really loved the transition. I was still hands-on coding while at the same time working on our future vision, talking to product managers, designers, and technical stakeholders. I helped my team on many fronts, from answering technical questions and code reviews, through helping them better manage their time and workload, to guiding them about future opportunities and areas for growth. I loved teaching and empowering people, but I struggled with the performance management side of the role. I'm naturally conflict avoidant, so delivering difficult feedback was very stressful for me. And I did have one difficult case. Even though I decided to push through my discomfort and do it with guidance from my coach and HR, it was still a very draining and unpleasant experience that dragged for over 9 months. If I wasn't so new to the role, I think this situation could have been resolved in a much shorter time, but I was a first-time manager. I made my mistakes. One of the traits of good managers is to also shield their team from a lot of politics, uncertainty, and chaos. I feel other people's emotions very strongly, almost like they were my own. So shielding my team became a priority for me. Anytime I failed
Failure.
and learned that one of my coaches was under stress, it was a big blow to the image of the perfect leader I wanted to be. But this also goes the other way. I didn't want to disappoint stakeholders, so I went above and beyond to find ways to deliver while not overstressing my team. And that's a huge lesson and a great skill to have, but I overdid it. I was working overtime for months, I was taking more emotional burden that I could handle. It didn't help that my responsibilities grew, but the level of control I had didn't. As my team grew, we picked up more projects and complex dependencies. This meant a lot of cross-team negotiation, trying to get on the same page and agree on requirements and deadlines while keeping everyone in the loop. I also had more weekly one-on-ones that sometimes went over an hour per person. And all of that on Zoom. Zoom fatigue is a real thing, and as an introvert that so easily absorbs others' emotions, I needed a lot of time alone to recharge. I ended up being so drained that I didn't have any energy to work on my side projects, on my channel, or even catch up with my friends. The problem here is not only the lack of balance, but also the fact that this type of job didn't bring any satisfaction to me. I became a software engineer out of passion for building anything my mind dreamt about with code. And as my team grew, there was obviously more managing and less coding. The after-work fatigue didn't help either, stopping me from being able to experiment with code in my spare time, something that I do regularly to engage my hyperactive brain. Before you go into the comments and tell me how much of a sensitive snowflake I am, let me just tell you one thing. I knew that all that I described was just the nature of the role, and I did expect all of that to happen. I just didn't exactly expect the impact it would have on my job satisfaction and mental health. In the process of working in the role of an engineering manager, I learned a lot about myself, what drives and drains me, and how I see my future career. I gave myself almost 2 years in the role, hoping that the longer I do it, the more comfortable I would become with these challenges. And to a point, it worked. I stopped being so anxious about giving feedback, and I learned how to provide it in a compassionate way. I learned heaps about project management, delivery, and trade-offs. I practiced presenting my ideas and thoughts in a way that's easy to understand for my coworkers of different seniority and specialty. I developed better listening habits so that I could understand what is important to my people. I also experienced different aspects of our management culture, which I could replicate or improve on if I ever decide to start my own company. But still, something was not right. And then in June 2022, I broke down. I was extremely stressed, I had no job satisfaction, and my depression was getting worse and worse from 2 years of on and off lockdowns. So I took some time off, 6 months to be precise. I will talk about my break, why I decided to take it, what I did during that half a year, and what it meant for my career in the next video. So subscribe and click that notification bell if you don't want to miss it. And also give this video a like if you like it, because that means a lot. Before going on a break, I handed my team over to my friend Julia. Julia and I started managing around the same time, but she was actually thriving in the role. I wrote handover docs for all the projects I was leading. I passed on any relevant documentation regarding my coaches, like their goals, their progress towards them, and their past performance reviews. And then I had 6 months to figure out life. And I kinda did, a little bit. I realized that pushing outside of my comfort zone was a good idea, but the direction was wrong. When I finally managed to be honest with myself, which is after I realized that my focus on career development was in equal parts social conditioning and a coping mechanism for feeling worthless, I realized that I had no aspirations whatsoever to follow the management path any further than I already did. I actually dreaded the thought of getting promoted or leading a bigger team. All I wanted was to coach and to code well, to have time and energy to keep learning practical skills and expand my technical knowledge, to create silly side projects, and to have as few meetings as possible. I work best alone, and I craved a role where I could focus in silence. So a month before going back to work, I met with my manager and I let him know about my decision. He already knew that it was a possibility, and he had a spot waiting for me in another team. I count myself super lucky that I could go through this process without having to worry about getting another job, especially with all the big tech layoffs happening around. When it comes to the financial aspect, nothing changed. I actually got a raise. It was more of a market and inflation adjustment, but still, a job that I enjoy so much more with no pay sacrifice. I know that long term this will most probably affect me. Managers seem to make more base salary and substantially more stock, but for me, it's just not worth it. I've been working as an individual contributor for 2 months now, and I have zero regrets regarding my decision. I'm happier than I have ever been because now I really appreciate how fulfilling working as a software engineer is for me. I also appreciate my manager much more, knowing how difficult his job is. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't try yourself in a software engineering manager role. Everyone is different, and maybe my drainers are your drivers. If you want to see more of my day-to-day life as a team lead/manager, you should check out this video.